We live in the age of AGI, and there's a lot of talk out there. What does that actually mean? Why is it AGI and not just AI? Is this all an illusion and the reality is much more sobering and boring? This is just another technology that does little things. Or are the visionaries, the utopians, right about what's happening? That this changes everything, that this time is actually different, and that maybe we have unlimited upside and unlimited risk in front of us. Today we are going to discuss this topic, and sometimes in times like these that are a little confusing and seem very serious about what could happen, it is important to take a step back and not just look at Tesla's share price or NVIDIA's little drop or what the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell says. Sometimes it is time to take a step back, think about in first principles about the world at large, history at large, and this amazing technology in front of us to understand what is actually happening on a much grander scale. We are beginning this whole thing with how I got into that topic today. And it started with a post on X that I want to share with you guys. And on this post, someone, Rowan Paul, I don't know him, but what he said was this in his post. Let me click on it. Rowan said, in response to Google's announcement of Gemini, but also Google's venture into TPUs, a new form of chip, that maybe NVIDIA is going to be hit. And I don't make it too complicated here. I will summarize it for you guys. What he basically said is that NVIDIA, the great company behind the entire AI revolution that builds the NVIDIA GPUs, the graphic processing units that are running a lot of Tesla's Colossus, of xAI's Colossus, of many other data centers, NVIDIA that had this amazing run of the biggest of the Max 7s, that NVIDIA's time has come in a bad way, that NVIDIA is close to the end. That's what he says because here you see NVIDIA's 70% margin, the manufacturing and R&D costs, and that they're reaping in this enormous margin. But on the other side, Google, with its great TPU, the tensor processing unit, where Google developed its own chip, its own artificial intelligence chip for a long time now, and now deploys it at scale in their own cloud. They are much more aggressive in their cloud pricing because they don't need NVIDIA chips anymore. They are building TPUs and they're delivering it in the Google cloud, and therefore the margins will be cut. And NVIDIA's time has come to die, to lose all its margin. Therefore the stock dropped a lot actually yesterday. That is the story here. So what does it have to do with the future of humanity? Let me give you an idea. When he posted that, I unfortunately had to not agree with him, and I said the following. When it comes to AI chips, here is what protects NVIDIA's margins for quite a while. Okay? I'm saying he is not correct. I'm saying there is competition for NVIDIA, but the margins will not decrease. And maybe you ask, how is this possible? If you have competition, the margins decrease. No, that is not true economically. It's only true in some instances, in specific subsets of instances, but it's not something that always has to happen. Here's why. Hey, creating these videos is a lot of work. Please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Now let's get back to the video. What I'm saying is demand will keep increasing faster than supply. For every single chip that NVIDIA has, it has 12 orders, 11 orders, cannot be filled. There's not enough supply. It's growing faster than they can increase manufacturing. Then I'm saying in a supply constrained environment, why would anyone undercut anyone else unless it's for internal use? This makes no sense. Of course, if there's a whole huge queue that wants to buy you baguettes, you're a French baker, you sell baguettes. You have 5 baguettes, you have 200 people who want the 5 baguettes. You're going to charge a hell lot more than you would normally charge. Now, a competing baker opens and also provides another 5 baguettes. Are you going to lower your price? No, because a lot of people are still hungry. Because you're a mean little French baker, say, I don't care if they're hungry, I care about my margins. As long as there's still 180 people not getting their baguettes, why would I decrease my margins just because another guy also gets rich? That's how it works. It's a very mean example. We are not talking about baguettes. We are talking about just intelligence. Prices are not a function of competition as long as demand vastly exceeds supply. There you have it. Competition just increases supply, does not decrease demand. You only lower prices if you otherwise can sell. Therefore, the only question is if somehow someone creates a true supply glut, or if demand is weakening, right? You have demand, you have supply. If here's NVIDIA, here's demand. NVIDIA goes here, demand goes here, margin stays the same. If Google comes in and adds this much supply and demand goes here, nothing changes. Everyone just makes a lot of money. Therefore, the only question is if somehow someone creates a true supply glut or if demand is weakening, inference and probably even training compute will keep expanding vastly exponentially. Here comes the important key point of this video. Inference and probably even training compute will keep expanding vastly and exponentially because intelligence is probably the only good or service with no limit to demand, since it directly increases economic value expansion forever and with no limit or cap. That's what people don't understand. Sorry to say that, but that's true. You guys understand it because you're watching this video. You can sell infinite intelligence, and the more you sell that intelligence, the more value you create ad infinitum. Let that sink in. That is the topic of this video, and we need to really understand this, okay? So let me talk a little bit about the economics of intelligence and why what I wrote makes a lot of sense economically, even though most economists will not understand it, unfortunately. It's very sad. The economics of intelligence, we have to think about this. For every good or service out there, even for energy and things like that, think about baguettes, think about cars, think about t-shirts, think about coffee mugs. For every economic good except for a very few, and one of them is intelligence. One thing is true, that if you have too much of this good, the price and value decreases. Imagine baguettes. Imagine you have the best baguettes in the world. You can sell them for $10 per baguette because they're so amazing. But now imagine you produce 100 billion of these baguettes per day. You only have 8 billion people. How much would you pay for the baguette? Not that much anymore because they're all around you. The whole street is, packed with baguettes. So you're saying, I'm full. I am cutting back on my carbs. I cannot eat this baguette anymore, even though it tastes amazing. I already had 5 today. No. And then suddenly you have all these baguettes. No one wants them. What do? You decrease the price to $9. Anyone? No. $5. Anyone? No. I just don't want them anymore. I have too many. That logic is true for every good. Even for Ferraris, if you had 10, you don't want 11. Even for Bugattis, even for private jets. Once everyone has 2 private jets, you're not going to pay a dime for a third one. Why would you? So for every good in the world, supply and demand have to match. But there is one exception, and that exception is intelligence. Because think about it. What are you doing with intelligence? What you're doing with intelligence, in a way, is you apply it as the ultimate technology. And technologies are not there to be consumed. Technologies are there for creating more economic value of any type. Intelligence is the most universal of all technologies. Because you can say, you know what? Even if you run out of wishes, which is not going to happen, but even if you run out of wishes, you could ask the intelligence, what should I wish for now that actually makes me more happy? And it would tell you something. And then you tell the intelligence, can you just make this happen? And the intelligence says, sure, but you don't have enough money. You tell the intelligence, can you make me more money? The intelligence is going to help you make more money. What is the exact ceiling of this? What is the exact ceiling of looking at the world, understanding the world, looking inside yourself, understanding what you want, and then get that thing you want? What exactly is the limit? And there's a very simple answer because of the fundamental architecture of the human mind. There is no limit. There is no limit to what we can want as long as we don't run out of imagination, because our emotional infrastructure is designed to observe the world and want something. Always. You always want something. The only way you stop wanting things is if your brain gets wiped. Then you can't want anything because you don't have a cognitive space, so you cannot simulate things, and so you cannot want them. As long as you can think, as long as you have a consciousness, you will want stuff or things. Therefore, the economy will never be saturated. Therefore, we will always have fights over stuff. Therefore, people will always pursue progress, which just simply means getting more of what they want. And therefore, the demand of intelligence on a first principle level is economically unlimited. It cannot be satisfied, ever. In fact, with more intelligence comes more desires and more ways of fulfilling these desires. That is the fundamental thing we have to understand. Okay, Maybe you say, Joe, what are you talking about? That sounds a little too philosophical. It's not. It's very pragmatic. It means as long as you live and exist, you want stuff. As long as you want stuff, you're going to pay for that stuff you want. And as long as intelligence makes you get these things you want faster and cheaper, you're going to pay for the intelligence. And because the economy simply accounts for what you want and how much you paid for it, with more intelligence, it will grow and grow and grow and grow. And there is no limit. In fact, it will exponentially grow faster, exponentially grow bigger with more intelligence. Isn't that interesting? Now, maybe you say, Joe, this is all a little pie in the sky. What are you talking about? That would require an intelligence that's all-knowing, that can make any wish come true. We need AGI, true, complete, self-conscious, mega ASI, AGI, something. But no, that's not true. In fact, all you need to get this started is the AI we have today. We need ChatGPT, Gemini 3, Grok 4.1. That is completely sufficient because that is already intelligence. Because on a very pragmatic level, what do you want? You want something. Let's say you want to start a company. Let's say you want to launch a financial product. Let's say you want to build a website and bring people together. All of these things are now available at much cheaper costs, in much shorter time frame than ever before because of ChatGPT, because of Grok, because of Claude. If you want to do anything, you need contracts. You can now generate these contracts much cheaper. If you want anything, you need a website or some web application. You can generate that much cheaper now with Lovable and with Cursor. What does it mean? You're going to use more and more and more of that stuff. If you're a doctor, you can now analyze your radiology stuff with AI. What does it mean? You are going to pay more because you can do more, and then people want more of these scans. There's no limit. Okay, so we do not need AGI. We just need to, cross the threshold, and we need to make sure that this intelligence can trickle more and more down everywhere. And the more it trickles down, the exponentially more we consume, and more we consume of that intelligence because we generate more and more economic value. And then if the intelligence also increases, which it does every 2 weeks right now and forever, right? Because once you have intelligence, you can apply it to itself, and that is already happening at scale. We are already in the middle of an economic and intelligence singularity, in case you didn't notice. As long as this happens, there is no end. This is very important because it makes intelligence and AI fundamentally different from everything else. For example, even the most foundational innovations ever, electricity of all things, comes the closest to AI, but it's still different. Because electricity does not truly improve itself and decreases its own price. Of course, it does it to some extent, right? On a much slower time scale, but at heavy limitations. And even though electricity comes close to AI in the sense that it's universally applicable and changes everything, it's vastly less universal and vastly less applicable than AI. So even then, it's not comparable. Okay, we have to understand this because this is the fundamental first principle behind this AI revolution. We have to understand that AI is different from everything else from an economics perspective. Intelligence is the one thing you can never have enough of because the more you have, the exponentially more money you make. And that is true for everyone in all areas. And the more intelligence you deploy, especially if you deploy this intelligence into developing more intelligence or implementing it more, the exponentially more you make. There is no limit to the demand for intelligence. Because intelligence is not a consumer product. It's the ultimate product that B2B investment-wise boosts all other imaginable products, even those not imaginable, because it can imagine it itself. I believe today in 2025, soon 2026, we are entering in the final maximum 3-year. I have to add maximum. This is not 3 year. This is a maximum 3-year transition period where this becomes completely true. Right now, it's just true. It's not completely true yet because it needs to penetrate every single economic sector completely. Right now, it is already trickling and crackling across a lot of these sectors. But once it's fully implemented, not end implemented, because as I just explained, there is no end implementation here, but initially implemented in medicine, in law, in all white collar jobs, in corporate America, corporate Europe, in the government administration, in the military, everywhere, in research. Once it has its little fingers, little AI kraken tentacles in there, it will feed everything through the tentacles with limitless growth. And the more people taste the sweet little taste of hypergrowth, they will suck more on these tentacles. That's the whole story. And there is no end. There is no end to the sucking. It is a fundamental change in how the economy works, because suddenly for the first time, you have an economic sector, the AI sector, the AI core sector, the people who actually manufacture intelligence itself or the delivery vehicles of intelligence. Suddenly you have an economic sector that feeds into the growth of all other sectors with increasing and exponential scale. This is not an S curve. This is an exponential curve that never ends and has no S at the end. It's an L curve. It just goes up. And the more it goes up, the exponentially more it goes up. You remember this from the singularity. It's not just an intelligence singularity, it's an economic singularity. That doesn't mean it's a happy ending. We are not talking about the ending here, but it breaks the foundational truth of all economic dynamics that we have seen in the past. The fundamental truth of all past economic mechanics was the S curve. Sailing ships had S curves. Even electricity has, to some extent, an S curve. All other technologies have S curves. But intelligence has not an S curve. It's an L curve, or a reverse, a mirrored L curve. It's an S that is chopped off in the middle. And of course, you might think, Joe, you're the boy who cries wolf. These little boys, they always say, hey, this time it's different. This time it's different. If you're the old wise man with a long beard, you want to say, Joe, listen, young man, I've heard it so many times. This is never true. It's always the same. They always say this time is different, but it's never different. If you remember the little fairy tale of the wolf, the boy crying wolf, you will remember the boy cries, there's a wolf, there's a wolf. There's no wolf, but everyone panics. The little boy comes back, there's a wolf, there's a wolf. Everyone panics again. Again, no wolf. And the boy cries again, there's a wolf, there's a wolf. And then people don't listen to the little boy anymore. Say, this is a dumb little boy. He always says, there's a wolf. Don't listen to him. And then the boy for the fourth time says, there's a wolf, there's a wolf. And people say, dumb little boy. But guess what? This time there is a wolf and everyone gets eaten. Of course, in the fairy tale, only the little boy gets eaten. And the fairy tale is told to the little boys to not cry wolf all the time. The truth is, in a real village, everyone would have gotten eaten. And that's very bad. And that's exactly what we are facing here now. That I'm saying this time is different. Everyone says, Joe, you're so stupid. We have heard that before. Well, the fact that other people have been dumb before, that it always wasn't true, just means every time it's not true, it becomes exponentially more likely to be true this time. And guess what? This time it is true. This time it is different. And that is very important to understand. Now, what we do about it in terms of stocks, you know my theory, but I will elaborate on the theory a little bit more. We have something called the Mag 7. And this is an approximation. For example, forget Apple. Apple is a total loser company. They missed the train. They're out of the equation. The other, Mag 6. NVIDIA, of course, eye of the storm. Amazon, of course, hyperscaler. Alphabet and Google, of course. Not dummies, even though you can be critical. I think they suck at product. But they have Gemini and they have many core components. Meta, just had a video on them. They look like losers, but they just kicked out their central key loser, Jan LeCun, the little academic that led their AI efforts, and replaced them with a very smart person. I think Meta is undervalued and is now getting really into AI, and Zuckerberg has to do it. Tesla, of course, the most underrated of the companies right now by the market. By the way, this is the 2024 gains as a share of all gains. So that's why Microsoft is so small. Of course, Microsoft is much, much bigger in terms of market cap. But these are the Mag 6. Forget Apple. What do these companies have in common? Why are they so crazy and big? Look at this. 2020, 2025. Here is the market caps and how they evolved. Tesla was a little stagnating, 1.4 trillion, the smallest. Meta, also not super strong. These are actually my two favorites. Of course, Tesla by far, but Meta undervalued. They are the small ones. Amazon, nice growth. Alphabet, even bigger growth. Apple, well, they're just feeding off the old technologies. Microsoft, huge. And NVIDIA, of course, ridiculous. What do they all have in common? They have in common that they represent the centerpiece of the AI infrastructure. The chips, but think about Amazon. People don't even know too much about Amazon, but Amazon has a massive, probably the world's biggest AI build-out. They are the ultimate mother of all hyperscalers. They are building their own chips, by the way. This Amazon, what is it called? Inferon or whatever. Tranium, Inferium, I don't know, something like that. They have their own chips. They're a little crappy, but very efficient in terms of costs. Alphabet, guess what they have? They have their own chips. Tesla, they're building their own chips. Microsoft or Meta don't build their own chips, but buy a lot of NVIDIA chips and buy also some chips from Broadcom, I think. What do they all have in common? They are building out massive, massive global infrastructures. NVIDIA provides the GPU layer to basically the entire world. Amazon and Alphabet and Microsoft build out the cloud layer where the entire AI industry runs on. You have to understand that. Amazon, Alphabet, and Microsoft basically operate all the data centers in the world, maybe with Oracle. Tesla has a quasi-monopoly on embodied AI, which is insane, on robots and autonomous transport. These are, in the end, hundreds of trillions in terms of infrastructure that Tesla has a quasi-monopoly on. But these guys also probably tens of trillions of monopoly. Meta is a little underdog, but they have 3 billion users. So Alphabet, I think, has close like 3.5 billion or something. Meta has 3 billion. So these two own the entire population of Earth that is productive, at least. This guy, Tesla, owns the embodied AI infrastructure. Amazon, Alphabet, and Microsoft own the entire horizontal layer of cloud that every single startup company, large corporate, small corporate, mom and pop shop, mid-sized business need to use. So they are the tentacles that feed into the entire human and physical economy and make it all happen, all in their different ways. And then, of course, NVIDIA has the huge horizontal layer at the bottom. Tesla has it on top, embodied AI, NVIDIA at the bottom, the chips, and in the middle, the cloud layer. And that means these people are not vertical industries anymore. They basically are the key to fuel the entire future human economy and deliver the tentacles of intelligence that can deliver unlimited growth. Now, this unlimited growth, it's not going to fall from the sky. Everyone gets $1 quadrillion in their checking account and that's it. Of course, it's going to spread over the timeline and it has to be built and delivered. But it means the CAGR, the compound annual growth rates of these companies will very quickly now approximate, in my opinion, 30% or more, which means the capital returns for everyone will approximate 30% or more if you know how to invest. That is the takeaway for us, and that is the takeaway to tie it all back into investing, portfolio management. The 10% era is over. We will now approximate a 30% era, and soon more, which will be exponentially harder, of course. And that is a fundamental paradigm shift for how we approach investing, stocks, and everything. And today's video was all about outlining the deep economic first principle behind everything. Why is this even possible? And why is it so different? And you can't just stare at balance sheets and P&Ls. You have to understand the deep economic truths behind all value creation. Why intelligence is not a technology. It is something very, very different. And why there is no limit to the demand to intelligence. The more intelligence you can deliver, the exponentially more intelligence people will demand. The more money they spend on intelligence, the exponentially more money they will spend on intelligence in the future. And the more it grows, the exponentially more it will grow, with no limit in sight. You can grow the human economy by millions and billions of times, no problem. Because human value fundamentally is not limited. It is only limited by human desire, which is clearly unlimited. So there you have it. You will see what's going to happen. This is very important to understand. It doesn't mean the stock market cannot have bubbles and it drops, but it means that foundationally, we are now entering a new era and a new economic principle where the S curve gets replaced by complete exponential growth. I hope that was helpful. See you very soon. Go to pioneerlands.net where we discuss these things, and very soon have a new channel, by the way. You heard it here first. Hope to see you tomorrow.